Welcome back to another deep dive with us. Last time we were exploring the idea of the modern health theory and how mental suffering could be like the ultimate test in some kind of super advanced afterlife.
Yeah.
And we are going to be diving deeper into part 2 of that series today.
Okay.
It's called Hidden Complexity and focuses on the moral weight of the everyday choices we make.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at how even simple choices can have like these big moral consequences,
Yeah.
Like something as simple as grabbing a cup of coffee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, how can a cup of coffee be morally complex?
Well, that's what we're going to be unpacking today. So,
Yeah.
we tend to think of our choices as pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, good or bad, yes or no.
Right.
Like, kind of simple.
Exactly. But modern life has gotten so complex,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
and it's added this whole new layer of complexity to our choices.
Yeah.
So let's break this down.
Okay.
How can a cup of coffee be morally complex?
Still think about it. That coffee in your hand, where did it come from? Was it ethically sourced?
Mm.
Did the farmers who grew the beans get fair wages?
Oh.
What about the impact on the environment from its production and transportation?
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning.
Really?
Think about the cup you're using. Is it reusable or disposable?
Uh-huh.
If it's disposable, where's it going to end up?
Right.
A landfill, maybe the ocean.
Oh, gosh.
And, it's great to support local businesses, but what if their practices aren't actually sustainable?
Wow. Suddenly my morning coffee feels a lot heavier.
Yeah.
It's like every little choice is part of this much bigger picture.
Exactly. You're not living in a vacuum.
Right.
We have so much information about supply chains, global impacts, working conditions.
Yeah.
We can't really pretend we don't know anymore.
Mhm.
All this knowledge makes every decision feel so much more important because now we're aware of all the consequences that might happen.
So does that mean we're all just walking around with this moral burden all the time?
Yeah, it can feel that way.
That sounds exhausting.
It can be.
So the sources we're looking at call this the weight of knowledge.
Yeah.
As we learn more about how everything's connected, our choices feel so much heavier
Right.
because we feel responsible for all the ripple effects.
Yeah.
But does all this awareness actually help us make better choices? Or does it just freeze us up and we can't decide anything?
That is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it gets right to the heart of this hidden complexity idea.
Okay.
On the one hand, knowledge should help us make better choices, right?
You think so?
But it can also lead to us being totally paralyzed by overthinking everything.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling.
We get so caught up in all the possible consequences,
Yeah.
both good and bad, that we can't even move forward.
Right.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The sources talk about this concept called the mirror of intention.
Mirror of intention?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
So what it means is sometimes our good intentions can actually end up causing bad consequences.
Oh, wow.
We think we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But then because of this big complex web of how everything's connected,
Right.
our actions end up having these ripple effects that we just didn't even see coming.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me see if I understand this right.
Sure.
So say you're trying to be all eco-conscious
Uh-huh.
and you buy a bamboo toothbrush.
Okay.
But then later on you find out that actually making bamboo toothbrushes can be harmful to the environment in some ways.
Exactly. Or let's say you donate to a charity
Right.
to help people who really need it.
Uh-huh.
But it turns out that charity isn't run very well.
Oh, no.
And the money you gave them doesn't actually get to the people it's supposed to help.
Wow. That's really disheartening.
Yeah, it's tough to deal with.
It really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
if it's even worth it to try to make good choices when things are this complicated.
That's totally understandable to feel that way. And the sources talk about how this awareness of all this hidden complexity can create a special kind of mental anguish.
Oh, yeah.
We really want to do good,
Right.
but it's just not always clear what the best way to do that is.
So what are we supposed to do?
Well,
Just give up?
not at all.
Oh.
But we do need to think about things a little differently instead of just trying to find the right answer,
Okay.
which honestly may not always be there.
Right.
We should really be focusing on the process of making decisions.
A process.
Yeah.
So it's more about how we approach choices
Exactly.
rather than stressing out about finding the absolute perfect solution every time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
It's about carefully thinking about all the information we have
Uh-huh.
and weighing the different possible consequences
Right.
and then choosing the option that best fits with what we believe in.
So it's not about being perfect.
No,
It's more about just being thoughtful and intentional.
exactly.
Okay,
This makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get it.
Good.
but I'm still a little unsure how to actually use this in real life.
Sure.
Can you give me some concrete examples?
Of course.
Okay.
So let's think about working overtime.
Okay.
It seems like a pretty easy decision, right?
Yeah.
Work more.
More money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if you working that extra shift
Yeah.
means you can't go to your kid's soccer game
Right.
or you miss dinner with your family?
Yeah.
Then it becomes more about your priorities.
Okay.
Like, are you choosing money over your relationships?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's not just about the money.
Right.
It's about what you're giving up to get it.
Okay.
Or let's say you're trying to save money on clothes.
Uh-huh.
So you buy cheaper ones.
Okay.
But think about how those clothes were made. Were the people who made them treated fairly?
Yeah.
Were they paid a living wage? Or are you accidentally supporting a system that exploits people and the planet?
Wow. It's like you say, even our regular everyday choices are full of these moral dilemmas.
Yeah, that's the reality of our modern world.
It's a lot.
Every choice we make, even the small ones,
Yeah.
has the potential to create these ripples
Uh-huh.
that spread out way beyond just ourselves.
Okay.
And that's where the hidden complexity comes in.
So we've talked about how our choices are way more complex than we think.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
That's a great question.
How do we navigate this whole moral maze
Right.
without losing our minds?
Well, we're going to dive into that right after this.
All right. So we've been talking about how even simple choices like, buying coffee or working overtime can have all these hidden moral consequences. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
How do we even start to make decisions when everything feels so ethically charged?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And the sources don't have a simple answer,
Okay.
but they do suggest that our own personal priorities are super important.
Personal priorities. You mean what each of us cares about the most?
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about it. We all have different values and beliefs
Right.
and experiences that shape how we see the world.
Uh-huh.
And those values, they really influence how we weigh things when we're trying to make a decision.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
for one person, environmental impact not be their top priority.
Yeah.
But for someone else, it could be about supporting local businesses
Right.
or making sure workers are treated fairly.
Exactly.
And neither one is right or wrong.
It's about figuring out what matters most to you.
To me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And using that as your guide when you're faced with these tough choices.
So it's not about finding this universal right answer.
No.
It's more about making choices that fit with our own internal compass.
Exactly.
And
A
they-
personal thing. There's no magic formula.
But sounds like just the act of
yeah.
consciously deciding what our priorities are.
Right.
And wrestling with these complex issues and making choices based on our values.
Yeah.
That seems to be where we actually grow. Wow. This has been such an interesting deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm going to be thinking about how I make decisions a lot more carefully now.
I think that's a good takeaway for everyone.
It's crazy how much we just don't even think about,
Right.
even in our everyday choices.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
for our listeners out there who are trying to figure out all this hidden complexity, what's the one thing you would tell them?
I would say don't be afraid of the complexity.
Okay.
Don't avoid the hard choices.
Okay.
Use them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Mm,
And really refine your own internal compass.
because it's not about being perfect.
No, not at all.
It's about trying to live a life that reflects what you believe in.
Well said.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but be sure to join us next time as we continue to explore these thought-provoking ideas. Thanks for listening.